The U.S. imposes heavy tariffs on goods from China, Canada, and Mexico. China and Canada are swiftly taking countermeasures on American goods. And the Hong Kong government says the impact on Hong Kong is not big. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. The trade war has escalated between the U.S. and three of its biggest trading partners.
Hundreds of billions of dollars in economic activity and boost America.
After the U.S. slapped a 10% tariff on Chinese imports in early February, another tariff hike is on the way. On Monday, U.S. President Donald Trump signed an executive order announcing to raise tariffs on imports from China to 20% starting Tuesday. The White House said that's because Beijing has not taken enough measures to prevent the flow of drugs, including opioids such as fentanyl, into the United States.
Vast amounts of fentanyl have poured into our country from Mexico, and as you know, also from China, where it goes to Mexico and goes to Canada. And China also had an additional 10, so it's 10 plus 10.
When asked about possible countermeasures from China,
it depends on what they do in terms of a retaliation with some kind of an economic retaliation, which I don't think they're going to retaliate too much.
Have you spoken with President Xi about this?
I don't want to tell you that.
Meanwhile, Trump said that there is no room to reach an agreement with Canada and Mexico before midnight on Monday. So Canada and Mexico will be subject to 25% tariffs on Tuesday as scheduled. Trump will also roll out what he calls reciprocal tariffs on April the 2nd. That would match the rates charged by other countries, including any subsidies and value-added taxes charged by those countries. Canada said it is poised to take countermeasures.
Let's be clear. If Trump is imposing tariffs, we're ready.
Imports of Canadian
Hitting back, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said 25% tariffs will be slapped on U.S. imports worth 155 billion Canadian dollars until Washington retracted the policy. On Tuesday, the same day the U.S. imposes the 25% tariffs, Canada will first tax U.S. imports worth 30 billion Canadian dollars. Within 21 days, another round of tariffs will be slapped on 125 billion Canadian dollars worth of U.S. goods. According to the plan previously disclosed by Canada, U.S. goods subject to tariffs in the first phase include orange juice, peanut butter, alcohol, coffee, home appliances, and clothing. The second phase covers electric vehicles, boats, steel and aluminium products, some fruit and vegetable, beef, pork, and dairy products. Doubling down on Canada's tit-for-tat move, Doug Ford, Premier of the Canadian province of Ontario, said he is prepared to cut off electricity exports to the U.S., including New York, if the tariffs on Canadian goods go through. Mexico President Claudia Sheinbaum said ahead of Trump's statement, whatever his decision is, Mexico has a plan. China announced it will impose additional tariffs of up to 15% on imports of U.S. goods starting March 10th. Restrictions on exports will also apply to 15 U.S. companies. This comes after the U.S. imposed an additional 10% levy on Chinese goods. Mimo Senghai reports.
China's tariffs on imports of U.S. goods will take effect next Monday. Extra 15% of levies will be imposed on chicken, wheat, corn, and cotton. A 10% increase will be added to sorghum, soybeans, pork, beef, seafoods, fruit, vegetables, and dairy products. Meanwhile, the Chinese Ministry of Commerce has placed 15 American firms under export and investment controls, while 10 companies are on its unreliable entity list. The Foreign Ministry criticized U.S. authorities for using the fentanyl issue as an excuse to impose tariffs on China.
The Chinese people have never been swayed by fallacies, deterred by intimidation, pressuring, coercion, or threat. Is not the right way to engage with China. Exerting maximum pressure on China is a mistargeted and miscalculated approach. If the U.S. really wants to settle the fentanyl issue, it needs to stand by the principle of equality, mutual respect, and mutual benefit.
Memos 9, TVB News.
Asian shares were mixed in Asia today, following the new round of higher tariffs imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump, which China hit back at with higher duties on U.S. farm exports. Daniel Rao tells us more.
Asian markets finished mixed after opening lower on Tuesday. This after US President Donald Trump's tariffs of 25% on Canada and Mexico took effect, as an extra 10% tariff was imposed on China, raising tariffs on the country to 20%. The Shanghai Composite Index edged 0.2% higher. The Hang Seng Index in Hong Kong lost 0.4%. Tokyo's Nikkei 225 dropped 1.2%. Investors had hoped Trump would choose a less hardline stance in his global trade policy. US markets posted losses in their last trading session before the implementation of the tariffs. That shaved the S&P 500's gain since US election day down to just over 1% from a peak of more than 6%. Furthermore, a report on US manufacturing on Monday showed factory activity is not increasing by quite as much as economists had forecast. More discouragingly for Washington, it revealed manufacturers are seeing a contraction in new orders. Prices, meanwhile, rose amid discussions about who will pay for Trump's tariffs. A Hong Kong analyst said the US tariffs will cause disruption to global trade, but China is well equipped to weather the storm.
This will cause disruption in trade globally, not just between the four countries, as mentioned. The market reacted negatively, and the Hong Kong market fell sharply at opening. Hang Seng Index fell as much as 549 points, but then the market rebounded. I think people realize that because China is well prepared for the trade war, and it really won't affect that much as Canada and Mexico, because Canada and Mexico have something like 70% of the trade with the US, so they will suffer the most. China maybe has about 20% trade of the trade with the US. Certainly it will suffer, but also US export will suffer, especially farm products. I think all in all, I think it's a lose-lose situation. Nobody gains anything.
Daniel, TV News.
Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development Eljonon Yao said new U.S. tariffs on Chinese goods will not have a huge impact on Hong Kong's exports. Mimosa Ngai reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump's additional 10% levy on Chinese goods once again include Hong Kong products, as stated by a notice issued by the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. The Hong Kong government expressed strong disapproval of the tariffs on the city's products, describing the measure as grossly inconsistent with the relevant World Trade Organization rules. The government urges U.S. to rectify its wrongdoing and remove the unilateral tariff measures. Speaking on a radio program, Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development Eljonon Yao said the city's exports to U.S. account for 0.07% of its total export, which is about $6.1 billion. Yao said tariffs will not have a huge impact on the city because many local enterprises had moved their manufacturing sites elsewhere. Willie Lin, chairman of the Hong Kong Shippers Council, said Hong Kong businesses could still be affected even if they have relocated their factories to Southeast Asian countries. Lin said that was because the U.S. had hinted they would target the region in the future. However, he said Chinese goods would still have a bigger advantage than the U.S. products under the tariffs due to a cheaper cost of production. Mimosa Ngai, TVB News.
The Hong Kong Women Development Association found economic pressure is the main reason why people are reluctant to have children. With an estimated cost of around $6 million to raise a child to adulthood, the group said the government should strengthen policy support to parents. From mid-January to mid-February this year, the group surveyed nearly 2,300 people. More than 70% of respondents said they do not want to have children. About 28% indicated inclination to have a child, marking an increase of about 2 percentage points year-on-year. The age group between 19 and 29 years old is the most unwilling to have a child. The 30 to 39-year-old age group, meanwhile, is the most open to giving birth. The Women Association said that reflects the trend of Hong Kong women preferring to delay motherhood. The group recommends more family-friendly policies, including tax relief and increasing childcare services. And still ahead, Financial Secretary Paul Chan told TVB News why Hong Kong has advantages in the AI business. The U.S. has paused sending weapons to support Ukraine. And Taiwanese computer chip giant to invest $100 billion to build factories in the U.S. Welcome back. In his budget speech, Financial Secretary Paul Chan said technology and innovation are the main drivers for the city's future economic growth. Speaking with TVB's Straight Talk program, Chan said that Hong Kong has many strengths in developing its AI prowess. Accelerating development through reform and innovation was the theme of Financial Secretary Paul Chan's recently delivered budget address. Speaking on TVB's Straight Talk program, Chan explained how he balanced the city's priorities in the budget amid a challenging geopolitical and economic environment.
On the one hand, we have to take into consideration the geopolitical challenge to make sure financial stability and long-term fiscal sustainability. But at the same time, expedite our development, expedite our economic development, particularly embracing technology and innovation as a main driver for our future economic growth. And in this area, artificial intelligence is the main lever to use.
To support the development of AI in the city, Chan has earmarked $1 billion to establish the Hong Kong Artificial Intelligence Research Institute.
For international companies who are interested in the mainland market, Hong Kong is naturally their first choice as a beachhead to tap that market. And on the other hand, for mainland AI companies with global ambition, naturally Hong Kong will be the best platform for them to build their regional or international headquarters and from here expand overseas. So we are very confident in that. And also in terms of AI, the main contributor to its success is computing power, algorithm, data, talent, and capital. And we have all these critical success factors gathering into Hong Kong.
Looking ahead, the FS said the city's challenging public finance situation is transitory and he is confident about the city's economic future.
I'm optimistic about our economic development in the coming few years. Despite geopolitical challenges, we are seeing increasing investment from overseas. Say, for example, the number of foreign companies in Hong Kong increased to about 10,000. Compared to last year is a 10% increase across the board.
The sessions of the 14th National People's Congress will commence on Wednesday. Danny Zhou reports.
Hundreds of deputies of China's national legislature headed to Beijing for a preparatory meeting on Tuesday morning. Delegates from the Hong Kong SAR posed for a photo shoot in front of the sprawling Great Hall of the People, where the nation's top annual political gathering will convene. The third session of the 14th National People's Congress is scheduled to run from March the 5th to the 11th. NPC spokesperson Lo Qingjian briefed the press about the session's agenda and introduced China's legislative work in the past year, which he says contributed to new quality productivity and a high-level opening up of China. On stepping up the whole process of people's democracy, Lo said the NPC will mold the heightened efforts in strengthening supervision of the party and the country and maintaining close ties with the people. Legislative work would advance through a democratic process and in accordance with the law. They will also work to make sure that people's rights in information, participation, expression and oversight are fully implemented. With the US doubling the additional 10% tariffs on Chinese goods, the spokesman said at the press conference that trade disputes should be settled within the World Trade Organization framework. Lo urged Washington to work in the same direction as Beijing and find a solution through equal footing. When responding to a question about China's progress in artificial intelligence, Lo noted DeepSeek has obtained commendable achievements in driving the global application of AI technology. He said the rise of Chinese tech firms like DeepSeek manifests the innovation and inclusiveness of China's technological development. He added China is willing to join hands with other nations to bolster the healthy development of AI for the well-being of all peoples. On the economic front, Lo expressed full confidence in the growth outlook, saying the Chinese economy remains on solid ground with new growth drivers. Earlier, Liu Jieyi, a spokesperson for the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, told reporters ahead of the two sessions that there are profound and complex changes, both at home and abroad. Yet Liu pointed out China's long-term growth is unchanged due to its multiple advantages, strong resilience and great potential. Premier Li Qiang is expected to deliver the government work report at the opening meeting of the MPC, outlining the growth target for the year and the country's economic priorities. Danny Zhou, TVB News.
Chief Executive John Lee is slated to attend with a broad swath of Hong Kong delegates, taking hundreds of proposals to Beijing. The city's further integration with the mainland is set to be on the agenda for the two sessions. Lo Qinjian lauded Hong Kong and Macau's integration into the development of the Guangdong-Hong Kong-Macau Greater Bay Area, a major strategy of China. The spokesperson says the two SARs have achieved considerable progress in their economy, society, people's livelihood, and rule of law. He highlighted Hong Kong and Macau's irreplaceable roles in China's opening up and voiced the MPC Standing Committee's support for the development of the Greater Bay Area. The opening session of the National People's Congress in Beijing and the government work report by Premier Li Qiang will be broadcast live on Pearl tomorrow from 9 in the morning. U.S. President Donald Trump has paused military aid to Ukraine as he seeks to pressure Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to engage in negotiations to end the war with Russia. Tracy Furness has more.
Reaction to US President Donald Trump's Oval Office thrashing of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky Friday night continues from world leaders. The latest from French Prime Minister François Bayrou, speaking frankly in a parliamentary debate on Ukraine. On Friday night in the Oval Office of the White House, a staggering scene unfolded before the lenses of the entire world, marked by brutality, a desire to humiliate, with the goal of making Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky fold through threats so that he gives in to the demands of his aggressor, Bayrou said. The incoming United Nations Security Council President, Christina Marcus Lasson, said this is a critical moment for international peace and security. When asked whether the EU's greatest concern was Russian President Vladimir Putin or US President Donald Trump, she answered, the aggressor, it's President Putin.
Because there's no doubt who is the threat here. It's the aggressor, it's President Putin, it's Russia who invaded Ukraine in this illegal war of aggression. If you can invade a neighboring country just because it's possible and actually then are rewarded, if you're rewarded after that, what would that mean for what would happen next? And that's, of course, a really real concern around Europe. I think that there is this real fear, among many of our EU and NATO partners that who would be next in line.
Trump upended US policy on Ukraine and Russia, adopting a more conciliatory stance towards Moscow and pausing US assistance to Ukraine.
Taiwanese computer chip giant TSMC is investing a further $100 billion in America to build manufacturing plants and hire more employees in Arizona. David Garrett reports.
Thank you very much. This is a very big day.
With a handshake, it was all agreed.
Taiwan Semiconductor is announcing that they will be investing at least $100 billion in new capital in the United States over the next short period of time to build state-of-the-art semiconductor manufacturing facilities. I think mostly it's going to be in Arizona. The most powerful AI chips in the world will be made right here in America, and it'll be a big percentage of the chips made by his company.
Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC, make chips for Amazon, Apple and Intel, among others. Trump says the deal boosts America's dominance in AI.
Really, without the semiconductors, there is no economy. Powering everything from AI to automobiles to advanced manufacturing. And we must be able to build the chips and semiconductors that we need right here in American factories with American skill and American labor.
The investment by the biggest semiconductor producer in the world pays for 5 new manufacturing or packaging plants alongside the one factory TSMC already have in Arizona.
For this, all the investment, $165 billion, is going to create thousands of high-paid jobs, as the president just announced.
Should China decide to isolate Taiwan or China decide to take Taiwan?
I can't say minimize. That would be a catastrophic event, obviously. But it will at least give us a position where we have, in this very, very important business, we would have a very big part of it in the United States. So it would have a big impact if something should happen with Taiwan.
Last week, a Beijing spokesperson criticised Taiwan's ruling DPP authorities for allowing TSMC to sell Taiwan away, saying the company could rebrand as ASMC, America's semiconductor manufacturing company. Taiwan's government says it will assist with US investment while ensuring that the most advanced technology stays at home. David Garrett, TVB News.
And that's the news. Thank you for watching.